Welcome to Silent Night Archives. Tonight we drift slowly into the quiet world of food before refrigeration. A world shaped by patience, by seasons, by the rhythm of the earth. A world where every household relied on skill and tradition to keep food safe. A world where people listened to the land, the weather, the sun, and the wind. A world where preservation was not a choice, but a necessity. And where every method carried the wisdom of generations. As you settle into a comfortable position, let your breath slow, let your shoulders soften, and let the gentle glow of candlelight guide you into this journey. Imagine a wooden table worn smooth by years of use. Imagine the scent of herbs hanging from rafters. Imagine the cool touch of clay jars resting in shadowed corners. Imagine the quiet hum of a kitchen preparing for the seasons ahead. Imagine the soft rustle of grain, the faint sweetness of dried fruit, the earthy calm of a stone room at dusk. Tonight we explore how people kept their food safe long before electricity, long before humming machines filled our kitchens, long before cold storage was something we could take for granted. We will walk through ancient markets, quiet cellars, sunlit courtyards, mountain paths, and smoky hearths. We will follow the footsteps of farmers, merchants, cooks, and families. We will learn how they protected their harvests, how they prepared for winter, how they stretched the bounty of summer into the coldest months, and how they used the natural world as their greatest ally. This journey will be slow and gentle, each part unfolding like a soft breath. Each method revealing itself with calm clarity, each moment guiding you deeper into rest. As the candlelight flickers softly in your imagination, as the warmth of ancient kitchens surrounds you, as the quiet wisdom of the past settles into your thoughts. And now, with the night deepening around us, we begin our journey with the most essential truth of all: why food spoiled so quickly, and why preservation was not simply helpful, but vital for survival. Part 1. Why food spoiled so quickly, and why preservation was essential in the ancient world. Food was alive in a way we rarely think about today. Fresh fruit carried the warmth of the sun. Fresh milk held the breath of the animal that produced it. Fresh meat began changing the moment it left the warmth of the body. Everything was in motion. Everything was shifting. Everything was vulnerable to time, heat, and air. Without refrigeration, the natural forces that break food down worked quickly. Bacteria thrived in warm climates. Insects found their way into unprotected stores. Moisture caused grains to mold. Heat caused fats to turn rancid. And the simple passing of hours could transform a meal into something unsafe. In places like ancient Egypt, the heat of the desert accelerated spoilage. Fish caught from the Nile had only a short window before it became dangerous. Milk soured within hours. Vegetables wilted in the sun. And meat could not last a single day without intervention. The people understood this deeply. And so they developed methods that worked with the climate rather than against it. In ancient Greece, the warm Mediterranean air encouraged rapid fermentation. Sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful, grapes burst with sweetness, but also with wild yeasts. Cheese aged quickly, and fish spoiled almost as soon as it was caught. The Greeks learned to adapt, to use salt, sun, and wind, to turn vulnerability into opportunity. In Rome, the bustling markets overflowed with produce. But the city's heat meant that food had to be eaten quickly. Families planned meals around what would last the day, and preservation became a daily practice, not a seasonal one. The Romans understood that without careful storage, their supplies could vanish in a matter of hours. In Mesopotamia, the fertile lands between the rivers produced abundant harvests. But the same warmth that nurtured crops also encouraged spoilage. Grain stored without care could rot. Dates could ferment unintentionally. And fish from the rivers needed immediate attention. The people learned to dry, seal, and protect their food with remarkable skill. In China, The vast landscapes brought different challenges. Humid summers caused mold to spread quickly, while cold winters demanded preparation. Families learned to store food in ways that balanced moisture, temperature, and airflow, understanding that survival depended on foresight, and that every season required its own techniques. In medieval Europe, the struggle was shaped by long winters. Fresh food was abundant only for a short time, and without preservation, entire communities could face hunger. Families worked tirelessly during harvest seasons, knowing that what they stored in autumn would carry them through the cold months. The fear of spoilage was constant, and the knowledge of preservation was passed down like treasure. Food spoiled quickly because the world was warm, alive, and unpredictable. Because nature moved faster than people could consume. Because every climate brought its own challenges. And because life depended on keeping food safe for as long as possible. Preservation was essential because it offered stability. It allowed families to plan. It protected communities from famine. It created trade networks. It shaped cultures. And it turned fragile harvests into lasting nourishment. Without preservation, there could be no long journeys, no armies traveling across continents, no cities growing beyond their immediate surroundings, no winter survival in colder regions, no security for families living in harsh climates. Preservation was not simply a technique. It was a foundation of civilization, a quiet, constant practice that supported every aspect of life. And as we move deeper into this journey, we will explore the many ways people learn to protect their food, each method shaped by climate, culture, and necessity, each one a testament to human ingenuity, each one a whisper from the past, guiding us gently into the next chapter of this sleepy exploration. And as people across ancient lands learn to understand the fragile nature of their food, they also learn to read the signs of spoilage with remarkable sensitivity. They watched for changes in color. They listened for unusual sounds in fermenting grains. They smelled the first hints of sourness in milk. They touched the surfaces of fruits to feel the shift from firmness to decay. Their senses became tools of survival, their awareness sharpened by necessity, their daily routines shaped by the constant dance between freshness and time. In warm climates, the danger was greatest. The sun that nourished crops also hastened their decline. The heat that ripened fruit also invited insects. The air that carried the scent of harvest also carried the seeds of spoilage. Families learned to move quickly, to prepare meals soon after gathering ingredients, to share food with neighbors before it turned, to waste as little as possible, because every piece of food represented labor, effort, and hope for the days ahead. In cooler regions, the challenge was different. The cold slowed decay, but brought long seasons of scarcity. Fresh food was abundant only for a short time, and the fear of winter hunger shaped every decision. Families stored what they could, ate sparingly, and watched their supplies with careful eyes, knowing that a single mistake could mean hardship, knowing that preservation was not simply practical but essential. The world before refrigeration was a world of constant vigilance, a world where food was precious, where every harvest was a gift, where every meal was the result of planning and skill, and where the boundary between abundance and scarcity was thin. People understood that nature offered generously, but also demanded respect. And so they developed methods that honored the rhythms of the earth, methods that slowed time, methods that protected life, methods that allowed families to thrive even when the seasons turned harsh. The need for preservation shaped entire cultures. It influenced architecture. With homes built to include cool rooms and shaded storage spaces, it influenced trade. With merchants traveling long distances to exchange preserved goods, it influenced rituals, with communities gathering to prepare food for the coming months. It influenced daily life, with tasks divided among family members to ensure nothing spoiled. It influenced knowledge. with techniques passed down through generations like treasured secrets. And as people learned to protect their food, they also learned to protect their future. Preservation became a quiet form of security, a promise that the family would endure, a reassurance that the land's gifts would last beyond the moment of harvest, a way to transform fragile ingredients into lasting nourishment, a way to bring stability to a world shaped by uncertainty. And now, as we prepare to move into the next part of our journey, we step into the warmth of the sun and the whisper of the wind. We step into the oldest and simplest method of all, a method shaped by light, air, and time. A method used by countless civilizations across the world. A method that turned fresh food into something durable and safe. We step into the world of drying, where the sun became a silent partner in survival, and the wind carried the promise of preservation. Drying food in the sun and wind. Asterisk in the ancient world. The sun was one of the earliest allies people discovered in their struggle to keep food from spoiling. Long before tools were shaped from metal, and long before written records were carved into stone, families learned that the warmth of daylight could transform fresh food into something that lasted far beyond its natural life. The sun carried a steady, dependable heat, and the wind carried a gentle, drying breath. Together, they created one of the simplest and most universal preservation methods known to humanity. Drying food required no fire, no rare materials, no complex structures. It required only patience and an understanding of the natural world. People observed how fruit left in the sun shrank and sweetened, how herbs hung in the breeze became crisp and fragrant, how thin slices of meat stiffened and darkened when exposed to warm air. These observations became traditions, and these traditions became essential for survival. In ancient Egypt, the desert sun was a powerful force, its heat intense and unrelenting. Families used this strength to dry fish caught from the Nile. The fish were cleaned, sliced, and laid across woven mats placed on warm sand. The sun above and the heat rising from the ground below created a perfect cradle for drying. The wind sweeping across the riverbanks carried away moisture, leaving the fish firm and safe to store. The Egyptians also dried onions, garlic, and herbs, their scents drifting through courtyards as the sun worked slowly and steadily. In ancient Greece, the warm Mediterranean climate offered long stretches of dry weather. Perfect for preserving fruit and herbs, farmers gathered figs, grapes, and apricots at the height of their sweetness, spreading them across flat rooftops where the sun touched them from dawn to dusk. The fruit softened first, and slowly shrank as the water evaporated. The sweetness concentrated, the flavors deepened, and the fruit transformed into something that could last through winter. Herbs were tied in small bundles and hung in shaded breezeways, the air moving gently around them, carrying away moisture while preserving their aroma. In Rome, drying became part of daily life. Families dried grains on wide trays placed near open windows, the breeze from the Tiber drifting through homes and stirring the grains with a soft whisper. The sound of grain shifting under careful hands filled kitchens with a calming rhythm. The Romans dried beans, lentils, fruits, and strips of meat, sometimes rubbing the meat with herbs before hanging it from wooden beams. The meat darkened, slowly firming as the moisture left it, becoming something that could be stored for long journeys or lean months. In Mesopotamia, the intense summer heat made drying an essential practice. Dates were spread across woven mats, their sticky sweetness slowly turning dense and chewy as the sun worked its quiet magic. Fish from the rivers were sliced thin and laid on flat stones warmed by the sun. The wind sweeping across the plains carried away moisture, leaving behind food that could be stored in clay jars for months. The people understood the balance between heat and airflow, and they used it with remarkable skill. In China, drying became a refined and varied art. Families dried mushrooms, seaweed, tea leaves, and thin slices of vegetables, each food arranged with care to catch the right balance of sun and shade. Bamboo racks were placed outside homes, allowing air to flow from all sides. The gentle rustle of drying leaves filled courtyards with a soft, calming sound. The people understood that different foods required different conditions. Some needed full sunlight, others needed partial shade. Some needed frequent turning, while others were left untouched. This knowledge passed down through generations like a quiet inheritance. In medieval Europe, drying was essential for surviving long winters. Families dried apples, pears, and plums, slicing them thin and threading them onto long strings. These strings hung near windows or in warm attics where the air could circulate. The fruit darkened slowly, becoming leathery and sweet. The scent of drying fruit filled homes with a comforting aroma, a promise of nourishment during the cold months ahead. Farmers also dried grains, spreading them across wooden floors in barns. The wind sweeping through open doors carried away moisture. The sound of grain shifting underfoot became part of the daily rhythm of rural life. Drying food shaped the way people interacted with the seasons. Families watched the sky carefully, reading the brightness of the sun and the softness of the breeze. They learned to sense when humidity was rising, when clouds threatened rain, and when the air was dry enough to begin the process. The method demanded patience, but rewarded it with food that could last far beyond its natural life. Drying also shaped the way food was stored. Once the moisture was gone, the food became lighter, easier to transport, and easier to protect. Dried fruits were packed into baskets lined with leaves. Dried grains were poured into clay jars, sealed with cloth. Dried herbs were hung in kitchens, where their scent mingled with the warmth of cooking fires. Dried fish and meat were wrapped in cloth and stored in cool corners of the home. Each item carefully placed, each one representing hours of work and days of waiting. Drying influenced trade as well. Dried foods traveled long distances without spoiling. Merchants carried dried figs, dates, grains, and herbs across deserts, mountains, and seas. These goods survived journeys that fresh food never could, and they helped connect civilizations through trade and cultural exchange. Drying food in the sun and wind was more than a technique. It was a partnership with nature, a quiet collaboration between people and the elements, a way of slowing time, a way of capturing the warmth of summer and carrying it into the cold months, a way of ensuring that families could endure the uncertainties of weather, harvest, and season. And now, as we leave this sunlit world behind, we step gently into the next method, a method shaped not by warmth and air, but by the deep mineral strength of the earth, a method that draws moisture out with crystals formed over countless ages, a method that changed the way civilizations stored their most precious foods. We step now into the world of salting, where preservation becomes a careful balance of earth and flesh, of patience and transformation, of ancient knowledge guiding steady hands. Drying food also shaped the way families understood time itself. The slow transformation of fruit and grain taught them patience. Each day brought a small change, a slight shift in texture, a deepening of color, a softening of scent. And these changes reminded people that preservation was not a single act, but a gentle unfolding, a quiet partnership between human hands and the natural world. The sun rose each morning, offering its warmth freely, and families responded by arranging their food with care, placing trays where the light would fall evenly, lifting baskets to catch the breeze, adjusting the position of herbs so the air could move around them. Every gesture small and deliberate, every movement part of a larger rhythm. The wind played its own role in this ancient dance, sometimes arriving as a soft whisper, sometimes as a steady breath that carried moisture away with surprising speed. People learned to listen to the wind, to feel its temperature, to sense its dryness, to understand when it would help and when it would hinder. The wind became a silent teacher, guiding families in the art of preservation. Drying food also created a sense of community. Neighbors helped one another during large harvests. sharing space on rooftops and in courtyards, offering advice on the best times of day to begin drying, and warning each other when storms approached. The sight of families working side by side under the open sky became a familiar part of life, a reminder that survival was a shared effort, and that knowledge was strongest when passed from one household to another. In many regions, drying became tied to seasonal celebrations. The first day of drying fruit marked the height of summer. The final day of drying herbs signaled the approach of cooler weather. Children learned these rhythms early, helping to gather fallen pieces, turning small trays, and carrying baskets indoors at dusk, their laughter mixing with the rustle of drying leaves. Their small hands learning the skills that would one day sustain their own families. Drying food also influenced the flavors of ancient kitchens. Dried fruit added sweetness to winter meals. Dried herbs brought depth to simple dishes. Dried grains provided nourishment long after the fields had grown silent. And dried fish or meat offered strength during long journeys or difficult seasons. The taste of dried food carried the memory of sunlight, the memory of warm days, the memory of the land itself. Each bite a reminder of the work and patience that made survival possible. The method was gentle but powerful, simple but essential, and its influence reached far beyond the act of preservation. It shaped trade, it shaped culture, it shaped the way people understood their relationship with nature, and it shaped the quiet confidence that came from knowing the household was prepared for whatever the seasons might bring. And now, as the last rays of sunlight fade from the drying racks in our imagination, as the warm breeze softens into evening calm, we step slowly toward the next chapter of this journey, a chapter shaped by the deep mineral strength of the earth, a chapter where crystals older than memory draw moisture out with steady precision, a chapter where preservation becomes a careful balance of patience and transformation. We step gently into the world of salting, where ancient hands learned to protect food with the quiet power of the earth itself. Salting food, preserving fish, meat, cheese, and vegetables. Salting was one of the oldest and most dependable ways people learned to protect their food. A method shaped by the deep mineral strength of the earth. A method that transformed fragile ingredients into something stable and long-lasting. A method that relied on crystals formed over countless ages. Crystals that drew moisture out slowly and steadily, creating an environment where spoilage could not take hold. Families across ancient civilizations trusted salt as a quiet guardian of their harvests, a patient ally that worked without fire, without sunlight, and without wind. A method that required only time and careful hands. In the ancient world, salt was more than a seasoning. It was a tool of survival, a substance that carried the power to preserve life itself. People understood that moisture was the enemy of longevity, and salt became the answer, pulling water out of food and creating a barrier against decay. The process was simple in principle, but required great skill and practice. Each type of food demanded its own balance of salt, its own rhythm of preparation, its own quiet attention. And families learned these details through generations of experience. In ancient Egypt, salt was gathered from dry lake beds and desert deposits. Its crystals pale and coarse, perfect for preserving fish from the Nile. Families cleaned the fish carefully, then packed them in layers of salt inside clay vessels. The salt drew moisture out slowly, firming the flesh and preventing spoilage. The vessels were kept in shaded rooms where the desert heat could not interfere. And after days or weeks, the fish emerged transformed, dense, flavorful, and safe to store for long periods. Egyptians also used salt to preserve certain vegetables, rubbing them gently before placing them in cool corners of their homes, the salt protecting them from the relentless heat. In ancient Greece, salting became an art practiced in coastal towns where fishermen returned each morning with their catch. The Greeks preserved small fish by layering them in wooden boxes with coarse sea salt. the salt crystals pressing into the flesh and drawing out moisture, creating a brine that deepened the preservation. The boxes were stored in shaded courtyards where the air was cool and steady, and the fish developed a firm texture and a rich, savory aroma. The Greeks also salted cheese, rubbing wheels of fresh cheese with fine salt to create a protective outer layer. The salt slowed the growth of unwanted molds and allowed the cheese to age gracefully in cool storerooms. In Rome, salting became essential for feeding a bustling population. Families salted strips of meat by rubbing them thoroughly with salt and laying them on wooden racks. The salt penetrated slowly, firming the meat and preventing spoilage. Once the salt had done its work, the meat was packed into barrels lined with more salt. The barrels stored in shaded rooms where the temperature remained steady. Romans also preserved vegetables by mixing them with salt and pressing them under weighted stones. The salt drew out moisture, creating a natural brine that protected the vegetables for months. This method allowed families to enjoy flavors from warmer seasons, even during cooler months. In Mesopotamia, salt was abundant in the dry plains, and families used it to preserve fish from the rivers and meat from their herds. The process often began with slicing the food into thin pieces to allow the salt to work more efficiently. The pieces were then coated generously and placed on flat stones warmed by the sun. The heat helped the salt penetrate quickly, and once the moisture had been drawn out, the food was stored in clay jars sealed with cloth. The people understood that salt was a powerful ally in a land where heat and humidity could quickly ruin fresh food. In China, salting developed into a refined practice with many variations. Families preserved vegetables by mixing them with salt and placing them in large ceramic vessels. The salt drew out liquid, creating a natural brine that protected the vegetables from spoilage. The vessels were kept in cool rooms where the temperature remained steady, and the vegetables developed a deep, savory flavor. Chinese cooks also salted meat and fish, sometimes combining salt with aromatic herbs to create layers of flavor. The salted foods were stored in wooden containers or hung in shaded courtyards where the air could circulate gently. The method allowed families to prepare for long winters and unpredictable seasons. In medieval Europe, salting became a cornerstone of survival, especially in regions where winters were long and harsh. Families preserved meat by rubbing it with salt and packing it tightly into wooden barrels. The barrels were stored in cool cellars where the salt continued to work slowly, drawing out moisture and preventing spoilage. The process required patience and careful monitoring, as too little salt could allow decay, while too much could make the food difficult to eat. Families also salted vegetables by layering them with salt in large tubs, pressing them under wooden boards weighted with stones. The salt created a brine that protected the vegetables through the cold months, offering nourishment when fresh produce was scarce. Salting shaped the daily rhythms of households. Families gathered around tables to prepare food for preservation, rubbing salt into meat with steady hands, layering fish with crystals that sparkled in the light, mixing vegetables with salt until they released their moisture, each movement slow and deliberate, each gesture part of a tradition that stretched back through countless generations. The scent of salt-filled kitchens, mingling with the earthy aroma of fresh food and the quiet warmth of candlelight. The method also shaped the architecture of homes. Many families built cool rooms or shaded storage spaces specifically for salted foods, places where the temperature remained steady and the air moved gently. These rooms became sanctuaries of preservation, filled with barrels, jars, and baskets, each one holding food that represented security for the months ahead. The quiet stillness of these rooms offered comfort, a reminder that the household was prepared for whatever the seasons might bring. Salting influenced trade as well. Salted fish and meat traveled long distances without spoiling, allowing merchants to carry food across deserts, mountains, and seas. These preserved goods connected distant regions, creating networks of exchange that shaped cultures and cuisines. Salted foods became staples in markets, from the Mediterranean to the Far East, their durability making them valuable commodities in a world without refrigeration. The method also shaped the flavors of ancient kitchens. Salted fish added depth to simple meals. Salted meat provided strength during long journeys. Salted vegetables brought brightness to winter dishes. And salted cheese offered nourishment when fresh dairy was scarce. The taste of salted food carried the memory of the earth itself, the memory of patient hands, the memory of seasons passing slowly, each bite a reminder of the work and wisdom that made survival possible. Salting required attention and care. Families monitored their preserved foods regularly, checking for changes in texture or scent, adjusting the amount of salt if needed, turning pieces of meat to ensure even preservation, stirring vegetables to maintain the balance of brine. This quiet vigilance became part of daily life, a gentle rhythm that shaped the household's routines. The method also taught people to respect the natural world. Salt was a gift from the earth, a mineral formed over countless ages, and families used it with gratitude, understanding that it held the power to protect their food and their future. The crystals sparkled like tiny fragments of sunlight, each one carrying the promise of preservation, each one a reminder of the deep connection between people and the land. Salting was more than a technique. It was a relationship between human hands and the ancient strength of the earth, a partnership that allowed families to endure harsh seasons, unpredictable weather, and long journeys, a method that offered stability in a world shaped by uncertainty, a quiet assurance that the household would be nourished even when fresh food was scarce. And now, as we leave the cool, quiet rooms where salted foods rest in their barrels and jars, as we step away from the mineral scent of salt and the steady patience of this ancient method, we move gently toward the next chapter of our journey, a chapter shaped by fire and smoke, by slow burning embers and wooden racks, by the deep aromatic transformation that comes from hanging food above a smoldering hearth. We step now into the world of smoking, where preservation becomes a dance between flame and air, between warmth and time, between human skill and the quiet power of fire. Salting also shaped the quiet moments of evening in ancient homes, when families checked their stored food by the soft glow of lamplight, the barrels resting in stillness, the jars holding their precious contents with calm assurance, the air cool and steady around them. These moments carried a sense of comfort, a reminder that the household was protected against the uncertainties of weather and season. The slow, patient work of salt continued even as the world outside shifted, and families rested knowing that their efforts would carry them through the months ahead. The quiet strength of this method lingered like a gentle promise, steady and enduring. Smoking food over slow fires, smokehouses, wooden racks, and traditional techniques. Smoking food was one of the most atmospheric and quietly powerful preservation methods in the ancient world. A method shaped by fire that burned low and steady, by wood that released fragrant smoke, by patient hands that understood the slow transformation taking place above glowing embers. Smoking was not simply a way to flavor food. It was a way to protect it, to dry it gently, to surround it with compounds that slowed decay, to create nourishment that could last through seasons of scarcity. Families across countless civilizations relied on smoke as a silent guardian, a drifting veil that wrapped food in warmth and safety. The process began with fire, but not the bright crackling flames used for cooking. Instead, families built small, controlled fires that smoldered rather than burned, fires that produced thick, aromatic smoke, fires fed with specific types of wood chosen for their scent and their preserving qualities. The smoke rose slowly, curling around strips of meat or fish or cheese, the warmth drying the surface while the smoke infused it with protective compounds. The transformation was gradual, unfolding over hours or days. And the result was food that carried the memory of fire, the memory of wood, the memory of patient hands tending embers in the quiet of early morning or late evening. In ancient Egypt, smoking was used along the banks of the Nile, where fishermen prepared their catch for storage. Small huts were built from reeds and clay, their walls darkened by years of smoke. Inside these huts, fires of palm wood and desert shrubs smoldered gently. The fish hung from wooden rods suspended above the embers, the smoke rising in soft waves, drying the flesh and protecting it from insects and spoilage. The scent of smoke drifted across the riverbanks, mixing with the warm desert air. A familiar sign that families were preparing for the days ahead. The Egyptians understood that smoke added not only preservation, but also depth of flavor, a richness that carried through the seasons. In ancient Greece, smoking became part of coastal life, especially in regions where fishermen returned with abundant catches that needed to be preserved quickly. Families built small smokehouses from stone or clay, their interiors dark and cool. The fires inside fed with olive wood or grapevine trimmings, the smoke rising with a gentle sweetness. Fish were cleaned, salted lightly, and hung on racks, the smoke drying them slowly, transforming them into food that could be stored for long journeys or winter months. The Greeks also smoked certain cheeses, placing them on wooden shelves inside smokehouses where the air was thick with fragrant haze. The cheese developed a firm rind and a deep earthy aroma, a reminder of the quiet rooms where it had rested. In Rome, smoking was practiced in both rural and urban households. Families built small chambers attached to their kitchens, rooms where fires of oak or beech smoldered throughout the day. Strips of meat were hung from beams, their surfaces slowly darkening as the smoke curled around them. The Romans understood that smoking worked best when combined with careful drying, and so they often prepared the meat by removing excess moisture before hanging it. The smokehouses filled with a warm, steady scent, a mixture of wood and meat and thyme. The process required patience, as rushing the fire could ruin the food, but when done correctly, the result was nourishment that could last for months. In Mesopotamia, smoking was shaped by the hot, dry climate. Families used smoke not only to preserve, but also to protect food from insects. Small fires of date palm wood or desert shrubs were lit in clay structures with narrow openings that allowed smoke to escape slowly. Fish from the rivers and meat from herds were hung inside, the smoke rising in gentle waves, drying the food while coating it with protective layers. The people understood that smoke created an environment where spoilage struggled to take hold, and they used this knowledge to prepare for seasons when fresh food was scarce. The scent of smoke drifting through villages became a sign of preparation and security. In China, smoking developed into a refined practice with many regional variations. Families used woods such as pine, cypress, or fruit trees, each type of wood offering its own aroma and preserving qualities. The fires were kept low and steady, producing thick smoke that filled small wooden or clay structures. Meats were hung on bamboo racks, their surfaces slowly absorbing the smoke, the warmth drying them gently. In some regions, families combined smoking with steaming or drying, creating layers of preservation that protected food through long winters. The smokehouses were quiet places, filled with the soft crackle of embers and the drifting scent of wood, a place where time seemed to slow. In medieval Europe, smoking became essential for surviving long, cold seasons. Families built smokehouses near their homes, small buildings made of stone or timber, their walls darkened by years of smoke. Inside these structures, fires of oak, beech, or fruit wood smoldered for hours or days, the smoke rising in steady waves. Hams, sausages, and fish hung from thick wooden beams, their surfaces slowly darkening, their textures firming as moisture left them. The smokehouses were cool and dim, lit only by the faint glow of embers, the air thick with the scent of wood and thyme. Families tended the fires carefully, adding wood when needed, adjusting airflow to maintain the perfect balance of warmth and smoke. Smoking shaped the rhythm of daily life. Families gathered around the fire in the early morning, preparing food for the smokehouse, cleaning fish, trimming meat, tying bundles with twine, arranging pieces on racks. Each movement slow and deliberate, each gesture part of a tradition passed down through generations. The fire was tended with quiet attention. The embers stirred gently. The wood added piece by piece, the smoke rising in soft curls that drifted through the air like a whispered promise of nourishment. The method also shaped the architecture of homes and villages. Smokehouses were built with thick walls to retain coolness, with narrow vents to control airflow, with sturdy beams to support heavy racks of food. These structures became central to community life, places where families worked together, sharing knowledge and helping one another during large harvests or fishing seasons. The smokehouses stood as symbols of preparation and resilience, their darkened walls holding the memory of countless meals preserved through careful hands and steady fires. Smoking influenced trade as well. Smoked fish and meat traveled long distances without spoiling, allowing merchants to carry food across mountains, forests, and seas. These preserved goods became valuable commodities, traded in markets from the Mediterranean to the Far East, their durability making them essential for long journeys, their flavor making them prized additions to meals in distant lands. The scent of smoked food became a familiar presence in ancient markets, a sign of nourishment that had endured the passage of time. The method also shaped the flavors of ancient kitchens. Smoked fish added depth to simple stews. Smoked meat provided strength during winter months. Smoked cheese offered richness when fresh dairy was scarce. The taste of smoked food carried the memory of fire, the memory of wood, the memory of quiet hours spent tending embers. Each bite a reminder of the patience and skill that made survival possible. The flavor was warm and earthy, a reflection of the slow transformation that took place in the dim light of smokehouses. Smoking required attention and care. Families monitored the fires closely, ensuring that the flames did not rise too high, that the smoke remained thick and steady, that the temperature stayed low enough to preserve rather than cook. They checked the food regularly, feeling its texture, observing its color, sensing its readiness. This quiet vigilance became part of daily life, a gentle rhythm that shaped the household's routines. The smokehouse becoming a place of calm focus, where time moved slowly and purposefully. The method also taught people to respect the natural world. The wood used for smoking was chosen with care, each type offering its own qualities, its own scent, its own preserving power. Families understood that the trees around them provided not only shelter and warmth, but also the means to protect their food. The fire became a partner in survival, its smoke a gentle guardian, its warmth a steady presence. The relationship between people and fire deepened through the practice of smoking, a quiet collaboration that shaped the rhythm of life. Smoking was more than a technique. It was a conversation between fire and food, between wood and time, between human hands and the natural world, a method that offered stability in a world shaped by uncertainty, a quiet assurance that the household would be nourished even when fresh food was scarce. The smokehouses stood as symbols of patience and resilience, their darkened walls holding the memory of countless meals preserved through steady hands and glowing embers. And now, as we step away from the dim quiet of the smokehouse, as the last curls of fragrant smoke drift into the evening air, we move gently toward the next chapter of our journey, a chapter shaped not by fire or salt or sunlight, but by the mysterious and transformative power of fermentation, a method that relies on time, on natural processes, on the invisible work of tiny organisms that turn simple ingredients into something entirely new. We step now into the world of fermentation, where jars bubble softly in cool rooms, where flavors deepen slowly, where ancient families discovered that nature itself could preserve their food with quiet magic. Fermentation, pickling, vinegar, beer, wine, and naturally preserved foods. Fermentation was one of the most mysterious and quietly transformative preservation methods in the ancient world. A method that relied not on fire or sunlight or salt, but on the invisible work of tiny organisms that lived all around us. A method that turned simple ingredients into foods that lasted far beyond their natural life. A method that deepened flavors, softened textures, and created nourishment that could endure through long seasons. Families across countless civilizations trusted fermentation as a gentle magic, a slow unfolding guided by time, patience, and the quiet intelligence of nature itself. The process began with understanding that food could change on its own, that grains left in water began to bubble, that vegetables submerged in brine softened and soured, that fruit left to rest transformed into something fragrant and alive. Early families observed these changes with curiosity, learning to guide them rather than fear them, discovering that these transformations could protect food from spoilage, creating flavors that were not only safe, but deeply satisfying. Fermentation became a partnership between human hands and the unseen world, a collaboration that shaped entire cuisines and cultures. In ancient Egypt, fermentation played a central role in daily life. The warm climate encouraged natural processes, and families learned to harness them with remarkable skill. They fermented grains to create beverages that were safer to drink than water. The bubbling mixtures kept in clay vessels that rested in cool, shaded rooms. The Egyptians also pickled vegetables in brine, made from water and mineral-rich salts. The vegetables submerged beneath the surface, where the air could not reach them, the brine protecting them from spoilage while allowing natural fermentation to unfold. The jars lined the walls of quiet storerooms, their contents slowly transforming in the dim light. In ancient Greece, fermentation became a refined art, especially in the creation of wine. Families harvested grapes at the height of their sweetness, crushing them gently and allowing the juice to rest in clay vessels. The natural yeasts on the grape skins began their quiet work, transforming the juice into wine. The vessels stored in cool cellars, where the temperature remained steady. The Greeks also pickled vegetables using brine or vinegar, placing them in jars sealed with cloth and wax. The vegetables softened and developed a bright, tangy flavor, a welcome contrast to the simple meals of daily life. Fermentation became a way to preserve the bounty of summer for the cooler months ahead. In Rome, fermentation shaped both kitchens and markets. Families fermented cabbage and other vegetables in brine, pressing them beneath weighted stones to keep them submerged. The brine protected the vegetables from air while encouraging natural fermentation. The jars stored in cool rooms where the transformation unfolded slowly. Romans also used vinegar extensively, creating it from wine that had continued to ferment. The vinegar became a powerful preservative, used to pickle vegetables, fruits, and even certain herbs. The sharp scent of vinegar filled kitchens as families prepared jars for storage. The method allowed them to enjoy bright flavors even during winter months. In Mesopotamia, fermentation was essential for transforming grains into beverages that were safe to drink. Families soaked barley in water, allowing it to sprout slightly before drying and crushing it. The crushed grain mixed with water and left to ferment in large clay vessels, the bubbling mixture becoming a nourishing drink that sustained communities through hot seasons. The people also pickled vegetables using brine made from mineral-rich salts. The jars stored in cool corners of their homes, the vegetables developing a deep savory flavor as they fermented slowly. The method offered stability in a land where heat could quickly spoil fresh food. In China, fermentation developed into one of the most varied and sophisticated preservation traditions in the world. Families fermented vegetables in earthenware, jars buried partially in the ground to maintain a steady temperature. The vegetables mixed with salt and spices, the jars sealed with cloth and clay. The fermentation unfolding slowly in the cool darkness. The resulting foods carried complex flavors, sour, salty, and deeply aromatic. Chinese cooks also fermented soybeans to create pastes and sauces that could last for long periods. The jars stored in quiet rooms where the air was cool and still. The slow transformation guided by generations of knowledge. Fermentation became a cornerstone of Chinese cuisine, shaping flavors that endured through centuries. In medieval Europe, fermentation was essential for surviving long winters. Families fermented cabbage and root vegetables in large wooden barrels, layering them with salt and pressing them beneath heavy stones. The brine created naturally as the vegetables released their moisture. The barrels stored in cool cellars where the fermentation unfolded slowly. The resulting foods provided nourishment when fresh produce was scarce. Europeans also brewed beer using grains and water, allowing natural yeasts to transform the mixture into a drink that was safer than water. The bubbling barrels stored in cool rooms where the air carried the faint scent of malt and fermentation. The method became part of daily life, shaping meals and gatherings throughout the year. Fermentation shaped the rhythm of households. Families gathered around tables to prepare vegetables for pickling, slicing them carefully and placing them in jars, mixing brine with steady hands, pressing the vegetables beneath the surface, sealing the jars with cloth and wax, each movement slow and deliberate, each gesture part of a tradition passed down through generations. The jars lined shelves in cool rooms, their contents bubbling softly as the transformation unfolded. The quiet sound of fermentation became a familiar presence, a reminder that nature was working gently in the background. The method also shaped the architecture of homes. Many families built cool rooms or underground spaces specifically for fermentation, places where the temperature remained steady and the air moved gently. These rooms became sanctuaries of transformation, filled with jars, vessels, and barrels, each one holding food that represented security for the months ahead. The quiet stillness of these rooms offered comfort, a reminder that the household was prepared for whatever the seasons might bring. The faint scent of brine and fermentation filled the air. Warm and earthy and reassuring, fermentation influenced trade as well. Fermented foods traveled long distances without spoiling, allowing merchants to carry pickled vegetables, fermented beverages, and preserved sauces across deserts, mountains, and seas. These goods connected distant regions, shaping cuisines and cultural exchanges. Fermented foods became staples in markets from the Mediterranean to East Asia, their durability making them valuable commodities, their flavors making them beloved additions to meals in distant lands. The jars and barrels carried the memory of the places where they were made, the memory of patient hands in quiet rooms. The method also shaped the flavors of ancient kitchens. Fermented vegetables added brightness to winter meals. Fermented grains provided nourishment during difficult seasons. Fermented beverages offered safety and comfort when clean water was scarce. The taste of fermented food carried the memory of time itself, the memory of slow transformation, the memory of natural processes unfolding in the quiet darkness of cool rooms. Each bite a reminder of the patience and skill that made survival possible. Fermentation required attention and care. Families monitored their jars regularly, checking for changes in scent or texture, adjusting the brine if needed, pressing vegetables back beneath the surface, stirring mixtures to maintain balance. This quiet vigilance became part of daily life, a gentle rhythm that shaped the household's routines. The fermentation rooms becoming places of calm focus, where time moved slowly and purposefully. The method also taught people to respect the natural world. Fermentation relied on invisible organisms that lived in the air, on the surface of vegetables, and in the vessels themselves. Families understood that these tiny helpers were part of the earth's quiet intelligence, guiding transformations that protected their food and their future. The jars became symbols of trust in nature, trust in time, trust in the slow unfolding of processes that could not be rushed. The relationship between people and the natural world deepened through fermentation, a quiet collaboration that shaped the rhythm of life. Fermentation was more than a technique. It was a conversation between time and food, between brine and vegetable, between grain and yeast, between human hands and the invisible world. A method that offered stability in a world shaped by uncertainty. A quiet assurance that the household would be nourished even when fresh food was scarce. The jars and barrels stood as symbols of patience and resilience, their contents bubbling softly in the dim light, holding the memory of countless meals preserved through steady hands and ancient knowledge. And now, as we step away from the cool, quiet rooms where jars rest in their slow transformation, as the faint scent of brine and fermentation lingers in the air, we move gently toward the next chapter of our journey. A chapter shaped by the vessels themselves, by the containers that protected food from heat, light, and air, by the clay jars, wooden barrels, woven baskets, and underground spaces that kept food safe long before refrigeration. We step now into the world of ancient storage, where architecture and craftsmanship became partners in preservation. Clay jars, pottery, wooden barrels, woven baskets, cool storage rooms, and underground cellars. Long before refrigeration, families depended on the quiet strength of containers and cool spaces to protect their food. The vessels they crafted and the rooms they built became silent guardians of their harvests. Each jar, each barrel, each basket shaped by hands that understood the delicate balance between air, moisture, and time. Preservation was not only about transforming food, but also about sheltering it, giving it a place where heat could not reach it, where insects could not disturb it, where the slow passing of days could unfold gently without threat. The ancient world was filled with storage spaces that whispered of patience and preparation, places where food rested in calm darkness, waiting for the seasons to turn. Clay was one of the earliest materials people shaped for storage, its cool, porous surface perfect for protecting food from heat and light. Families molded clay with steady hands, forming vessels that could hold grains, oils, dried foods, and liquids. Once fired in simple kilns, the jars became strong and durable, their surfaces smooth and cool to the touch. Clay jars were placed in shaded corners of homes where the air moved softly, the jars shielding their contents from the warmth of the day, the earth itself lending its coolness to the food within. The quiet presence of these vessels became part of daily life, their rounded shapes resting against stone walls like patient companions. In ancient Egypt, clay jars lined storerooms built from mud brick, the thick walls keeping the rooms cool even in the desert heat. Families stored grains in tall, narrow jars, sealed with cloth and resin, the jars protecting the grain from moisture and insects, the cool darkness preserving its freshness for months. Egyptians also used pottery to store oils and honey, the jars sealed tightly to keep out air. The storerooms filled with the soft scent of earth and sweetness, the air still and calm. The jars resting in neat rows like silent guardians of the household's future. The coolness of these rooms offered relief from the relentless sun, a reminder that the earth itself could help preserve life. In ancient Greece, pottery became an art as well as a necessity. Families crafted amphorae with narrow necks and wide bodies perfect for storing liquids and grains. The amphorae buried partially in the ground to maintain a steady temperature, the earth surrounding them with coolness. Greek homes often included small storage rooms built with thick stone walls. The rooms dim and quiet, the air cool even during the hottest months. Inside these rooms, pottery vessels rested on wooden shelves, their surfaces painted with simple patterns. their contents protected from heat and light. The Greeks also used woven baskets lined with leaves to store dried herbs and fruits, the baskets allowing air to circulate gently, preventing moisture from gathering. In Rome, storage became a carefully planned part of household architecture. Families built cellars beneath their homes, cool underground spaces where the temperature remained steady throughout the year. The cellars lined with stone or brick, their floors packed with earth, the air carrying a faint scent of coolness and time. Inside these spaces, clay jars, wooden barrels, and woven baskets rested in orderly rows, each container chosen for its specific purpose. Barrels held liquids and fermented foods. Jars held grains and dried goods. Baskets held herbs and delicate items that needed airflow. The Romans understood that the key to preservation was not only the method, but also the environment. And they built their homes with this knowledge in mind. In Mesopotamia, storage rooms were built with thick walls made from sun-dried bricks. The rooms designed to stay cool even in the intense heat of summer. Families stored grain in large clay vessels sealed with mud and straw. The vessels placed on raised platforms to protect them from moisture. The air inside the rooms dry and still, the scent of earth and grain mingling softly. Woven baskets held dates and dried foods, their open structure allowing air to move gently around the contents. The people understood that airflow was essential for preventing mold, and they crafted their storage spaces with careful attention to ventilation. Small openings near the ceiling allowed hot air to escape, while cooler air settled near the floor. In China, storage traditions varied across regions, but shared a deep understanding of temperature and moisture. Families built underground cellars, lined with packed earth or stone. The cellars cool even during hot summers. Inside these spaces, large ceramic jars held grains, dried vegetables, and fermented foods. The jars sealed with cloth and clay, their surfaces cool and smooth. Chinese homes also included raised platforms for storing baskets of dried goods, the air circulating beneath them to prevent dampness. In some regions, families built cool rooms with thick wooden walls, the rooms shaded by overhanging roofs that protected them from direct sunlight. The air inside calm and steady, perfect for preserving delicate foods. In medieval Europe, storage became essential for surviving long winters. Families built root cellars beneath their homes or in nearby fields. The cellars dug deep into the earth, where the temperature remained cool and constant. The walls lined with stone or packed earth. The floors covered with straw to absorb moisture. Inside these cellars, wooden shelves held clay jars filled with grains and dried foods. Barrels held preserved vegetables and beverages. Baskets held apples, pears, and other fruits that could last through the cold months. The air inside the cellars cool and slightly damp. Carrying the scent of earth and wood, the cellars became sanctuaries of nourishment, places where families found comfort in knowing their food was safe. Clay jars were valued not only for their coolness, but also for their ability to breathe. The porous surface allowed small amounts of moisture to escape, preventing mold and keeping the contents fresh. Families often sealed the tops with cloth coated in beeswax or resin, creating a barrier against insects while still allowing the jar to maintain its natural balance. The jars came in many shapes and sizes, some tall and narrow for storing liquids, others wide and rounded for grains, each one crafted with care, each one a testament to the skill of the potter and the needs of the household. Wooden barrels offered a different kind of protection. Their curved staves held together by metal or wooden hoops. The barrels strong and durable, perfect for storing liquids or fermented foods. The wood absorbed and released moisture slowly, helping to maintain a stable environment inside. Families used barrels to store beverages, pickled vegetables, and even certain dried foods. The barrels rolled easily, making them ideal for transport. Their rounded shapes, resting in cool rooms or cellars, where the air moved gently. The scent of wood mingling with the aroma of preserved food. Woven baskets played a quieter but equally important role. Their open structure allowing air to circulate freely, preventing moisture from gathering. Families used baskets to store herbs, dried fruits, nuts, and other delicate foods. The baskets lined with leaves or cloth to protect the contents. The woven patterns varied from region to region, each one reflecting the materials available and the traditions of the community. The baskets rested on shelves or hung from beams, their presence adding warmth and texture to storage rooms. The scent of dried herbs drifting softly through the air. Cool storage rooms were designed with careful attention to temperature and airflow. Families built them on the shaded side of the house, often with small windows placed high on the walls to allow hot air to escape. The walls made from thick stone or clay, the floors packed with earth or covered with straw. The rooms dim and quiet, the air cool even during the heat of summer. Inside these rooms, jars, barrels, and baskets rested in orderly rows, each container placed with intention. Each one holding food that represented security for the months ahead. The rooms became places of calm, their stillness offering comfort and reassurance. Underground cellars were among the most effective storage spaces. The earth itself providing insulation from heat and cold, families dug cellars deep into the ground, lining the walls with stone or brick, the air inside cool and steady. The darkness protecting food from light, the cellars often divided into sections, each one dedicated to a different type of food. Shelves held jars of grains and dried goods, barrels rested on wooden stands, baskets hung from beams to keep them away from damp floors. The scent of earth and wood filled the air, a grounding presence that reminded families of their connection to the land. Storage was not only practical, but also deeply cultural. Each civilization developed its own traditions based on climate, materials, and needs. The vessels they crafted reflected their artistry. The rooms they built reflected their understanding of the natural world. The act of storing food became a ritual of preparation, a moment of quiet intention. Families worked together to fill their jars and barrels, to arrange their baskets, to prepare their cellars for the seasons ahead. The process brought a sense of peace, a reassurance that the household was ready for whatever the future might bring. The architecture of storage spaces shaped the rhythm of daily life. Families visited their cellars each morning, checking the condition of their food, feeling the cool air on their skin, listening to the quiet stillness, adjusting lids or cloths as needed. The cellars became places of reflection, their calm darkness offering a moment of rest from the heat and noise of the day. The vessels inside stood like silent companions, each one holding the memory of harvests past, each one a promise of nourishment for the days to come. Storage also influenced trade. Merchants transported goods in clay jars and wooden barrels, their contents protected during long journeys across land and sea. The vessels became symbols of reliability, their shapes recognized in markets from the Mediterranean to East Asia. The jars and barrels carried not only food, but also the knowledge and traditions of the people who made them. Their presence in distant lands, a reminder of the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. The method of storing food in cool spaces taught people to respect the natural world. They understood that the earth itself offered protection, that darkness and stillness could preserve life, that careful craftsmanship could create vessels that lasted for generations. The relationship between people and their storage spaces became one of quiet trust, a partnership that shaped the rhythm of life. The cool rooms and cellars standing as symbols of patience and resilience. Storage was more than a technique. It was a way of living, a way of preparing for the future, a way of honoring the gifts of the land. The vessels and rooms that held food became part of the household's identity, their presence offering comfort and stability, their quiet strength supporting families through seasons of abundance and scarcity. The cool darkness of cellars and the gentle stillness of storage rooms became sanctuaries of nourishment, places where time moved slowly and purposefully. And now, as we step away from the cool, quiet spaces where jars and barrels rest in their patient stillness, as the scent of earth and wood lingers softly in the air, we move gently toward the next chapter of our journey, a chapter shaped by the cold breath of winter and the natural chill of mountains and caves, a chapter where ice, snow, and the deep coolness of the earth became powerful allies in preservation. We step now into the world of ice houses and natural cooling, where families learn to harness the cold itself to protect their food long before refrigeration. Asterisk ice houses, mountain snow, cold caves, seasonal storage, and natural cooling methods. Long before refrigeration, families learned to harness the quiet strength of cold itself, the gentle breath of winter, the deep chill of mountains, the steady coolness of caves, and the lingering presence of ice gathered during the coldest months. Cold became a silent ally in preservation, a force that slowed time, softened decay, and protected food through seasons of uncertainty. Civilizations across the world discovered ways to capture winter's touch and carry it into the warm months, creating spaces where food could rest in calm darkness, surrounded by the steady embrace of natural coolness. Ice houses were among the most remarkable structures of the ancient world, built with careful attention to insulation, airflow, and the slow melting of ice. Families gathered ice during the coldest days of winter, cutting blocks from frozen rivers or lakes, the blocks heavy and glistening in the pale light. The ice carried to deep pits lined with straw, clay, or stone, the pits covered with thick layers of earth to keep the warmth away. Inside these spaces, the temperature remained low, even as the world outside warmed. The ice melting slowly over months, its cool breath filling the chamber and protecting the food stored within. Grains, fruits, and preserved meats rested in the dim stillness, the air cool and steady around them. In ancient Egypt, ice was rare but not unknown. Caravans traveling from colder regions brought small quantities of snow or ice wrapped in layers of straw and cloth, the precious cargo stored in deep pits or shaded rooms. The Egyptians used these cool spaces to protect delicate foods during the hottest months, the air inside the pits carrying a faint chill, a quiet reminder of distant mountains where winter lingered. Though ice was not common, the idea of cool storage shaped Egyptian architecture, with homes built to include shaded courtyards and thick-walled rooms that remained cool even in the desert heat. In ancient Greece, families living near mountains gathered snow during winter, packing it tightly into deep pits lined with straw. The snow compressed into dense layers that melted slowly, creating a cool environment that lasted well into spring and early summer. The Greeks also used natural caves as storage spaces, the caves cool and dark, their stone walls holding the chill of winter long after the sun returned. Inside these caves, families stored amphorae filled with wine or oil, baskets of dried fruit, and jars of preserved foods. The air inside the caves calm and steady, the temperature perfect for protecting delicate ingredients. In Rome, ice houses became more refined, built with thick stone walls and deep chambers designed to hold ice gathered from distant mountains. The Romans transported ice wrapped in straw and cloth, the blocks carried by carts through winding roads, the ice stored in underground rooms where the air remained cool throughout the year. These spaces became essential for preserving certain foods during the warm months. The Romans also used mountain caves as natural refrigerators, storing perishable goods in the cool darkness. The scent of stone and earth filling the air, the temperature steady and comforting. In Mesopotamia, natural cooling methods were shaped by the intense heat of the region. Families built deep underground chambers where the temperature remained significantly lower than the surface. The chambers lined with clay and straw to maintain coolness. The air inside still and calm, the darkness protecting food from heat and insects. In some regions, people used wind catchers to direct cool night air into storage rooms, the gentle breeze lowering the temperature and preserving food through the hottest months. The combination of airflow and Earth's natural insulation created spaces where food could rest safely despite the harsh climate. In China, cold storage developed with remarkable ingenuity. Families living near mountains gathered snow and ice during winter, storing it in deep pits lined with straw and covered with thick layers of earth. The ice lasting well into summer, providing coolness for preserving delicate foods. Chinese homes also included cool rooms, built with thick walls and shaded roofs. The rooms designed to remain cool even during hot seasons. In some regions, natural caves served as storage spaces, their stone walls holding the chill of winter, the air inside carrying a faint scent of earth and moisture. The caves becoming sanctuaries of preservation where food could rest in quiet darkness. In medieval Europe, ice houses became essential for wealthy households and communities. Large structures built from stone or brick, their walls thick and their roofs insulated with layers of straw and earth. Inside these ice houses, blocks of ice gathered from frozen lakes were stacked carefully, separated by layers of straw to slow melting. The cool air preserved food through the warm months. Families stored butter, cheese, fruits, and certain meats in these spaces. The air inside crisp and still, the scent of straw and cold stone filling the chamber. The ice houses stood as symbols of preparation and resilience, their quiet interiors offering relief from the heat of summer. Mountain snow played an important role in many regions. Families traveled into the mountains during winter or early spring, gathering snow and packing it tightly into woven baskets or clay-lined pits. The snow compressed into dense layers that melted slowly, the cold seeping into the surrounding earth, creating a natural refrigerator that lasted for months. The journey to gather snow became a seasonal ritual, a moment of connection between families and the landscape. The snow carried down the mountain paths in quiet procession, wrapped in cloth and straw to protect it from the sun. Cold caves were among the most reliable natural storage spaces, their stone walls holding the chill of winter long after the seasons changed. Families discovered that certain caves maintained a steady temperature throughout the year, the air inside cool and slightly damp, perfect for preserving food. The caves became sanctuaries of nourishment, their darkness protecting food from light, their stillness offering a sense of calm. Families stored baskets of fruit jars, of preserved vegetables, and even certain dairy products in these spaces. The scent of stone and earth filling the air, the coolness wrapping around the food like a gentle embrace. Seasonal storage shaped the rhythm of life. Families prepared for winter by gathering ice, snow, or cool earth, creating spaces where food could rest safely through the warm months. The process required planning and cooperation, neighbors helping one another to gather ice or build storage pits. The work done in the quiet of early morning or the soft light of late afternoon. The air crisp and cold, the sound of footsteps crunching on snow, the scent of winter lingering in the air. The preparation brought a sense of unity, a shared understanding that survival depended on working with the natural world. Natural cooling methods taught people to respect the rhythms of the earth. They understood that cold was a gift of the seasons, a force that could be captured and used with care. The earth itself became a partner in preservation, its cool depths offering protection, its caves offering shelter, its mountains offering snow and ice. The relationship between people and the natural world deepened through these practices, a quiet collaboration that shaped the rhythm of life. Cold storage was more than a technique. It was a way of listening to the land, a way of honoring the seasons, a way of preparing for the future. The ice houses, caves, and cool rooms became symbols of patience and resilience. Markets, merchants, kitchens, households planning for winter and reducing food waste. In the ancient world, food preservation was not only a collection of techniques, but a way of living. A rhythm that shaped every household, every market, every kitchen, and every season. Families understood that survival depended on planning, on careful use of resources, on knowing when to gather, when to store, when to share, and when to save. The world before refrigeration was a world where nothing could be taken for granted, where every piece of food carried the weight of labor and hope, where waste was avoided with quiet determination, and where communities worked together to ensure that no harvest was lost to time. Markets were the beating heart of ancient towns and cities. Bustling spaces filled with the scents of fresh herbs, dried fruits, fermented vegetables, and preserved meats. Merchants arranged their goods with care, placing baskets of grain beside jars of pickled vegetables, hanging strings of dried fruit from wooden beams, stacking clay vessels filled with oil or honey, the air alive with soft voices, the rustle of cloth, the gentle clatter of pottery. Families visited these markets not only to buy food, but to learn from the merchants who understood the art of preservation. The merchants shared knowledge freely, offering advice on how to store grain, how to keep herbs fresh, how to protect food from insects and heat. The market became a place of exchange, not only of goods, but of wisdom. In ancient Egypt, markets lined the edges of the Nile, the river carrying boats filled with grain, vegetables, and preserved fish. Merchants displayed their goods beneath woven canopies that offered shade from the sun. The scent of dried onions and herbs drifted through the air. Families purchased what they needed for the days ahead, always mindful of the heat that threatened to spoil fresh food. They planned meals carefully, choosing ingredients that would last through the warm hours. The market was a place of color and movement, but beneath the activity lay a deep understanding of preservation, a quiet awareness that every purchase required thought and intention. In ancient Greece, markets were lively gathering places where farmers, fishermen, and artisans brought their goods to sell. The stalls filled with amphorae of oil, baskets of dried figs, jars of pickled vegetables, and bundles of fragrant herbs. Families walked slowly through the market, examining each item with care, feeling the weight of grain between their fingers, smelling the freshness of herbs, listening to the soft crackle of dried leaves. The Greeks understood that food needed to be used wisely, that nothing should be wasted, that every ingredient had a purpose. The market became a place where preservation and daily life intertwined, where families made choices that shaped their meals and their future. In Rome, markets were vast and varied, filled with goods from across the empire. Merchants sold dried fruits, salted meats, fermented vegetables, and grains, stored in large clay jars. The air filled with the scent of spices and the warmth of cooking fires. Families visited the market each morning, choosing ingredients that would last through the day, planning meals around what could be preserved and what needed to be eaten quickly. Roman kitchens were designed with storage in mind, with cool rooms, shaded courtyards, and clay vessels arranged neatly on shelves. The rhythm of cooking was shaped by the rhythm of preservation, each meal a reflection of careful planning and thoughtful use of resources. In Mesopotamia, markets were shaped by the fertile lands between the rivers. Farmers brought baskets of dates, jars of fermented grains, and bundles of dried herbs, the air warm and fragrant. Families purchased food with an understanding of how quickly it could spoil in the heat. They stored their purchases in cool rooms or clay jars, always mindful of moisture and insects. The market was a place of abundance, but also of caution, a reminder that the gifts of the land needed to be protected with care, that every harvest required thoughtful storage to last through the seasons. In China, markets were vibrant spaces filled with jars of fermented vegetables, baskets of dried mushrooms, bundles of tea leaves, and strings of preserved fruits. Merchants arranged their goods with precision, each item reflecting centuries of knowledge. Families visited the market not only to buy food, but to observe the techniques used by merchants to keep their goods fresh. The careful placement of baskets, the shading of jars, the use of cool water to keep certain foods from warming. These small details became lessons that families carried home, shaping the way they stored and prepared their own food. The market became a living classroom, a place where preservation was woven into daily life. In medieval Europe, markets were essential for communities preparing for long winters. Farmers brought barrels of fermented vegetables, baskets of apples, jars of honey, and bundles of dried herbs. The air crisp and cool, families purchased food with the coming months in mind. Choosing items that would last through the cold season, the market became a place of preparation, a reminder that winter required foresight and careful planning. The goods sold there reflected the work of entire seasons, the drying, the fermenting, the storing, each item a testament to the labor and patience of the household that produced it. Households across the ancient world were shaped by the need to preserve food. Kitchens were designed not only for cooking, but for storage, with shelves for jars, hooks for hanging herbs, and cool corners for baskets of dried goods. Families worked together to prepare food for the days, weeks, and months ahead. Children learned from an early age how to store grain, how to dry herbs, how to keep insects away from precious supplies. The kitchen became a place of quiet activity, the air filled with the scent of herbs, the warmth of cooking fires, and the soft rustle of baskets. Every movement deliberate, every gesture part of a tradition passed down through generations. Planning for winter was one of the most important tasks of the year. Families gathered during the harvest season to prepare their food for storage, drying fruits and vegetables, fermenting cabbage and root crops, storing grain in clay jars, and arranging baskets of apples in cool cellars. The work was steady and rhythmic. The days filled with the sound of knives slicing fruit, the scent of herbs hanging from rafters, the soft murmur of voices as families worked side by side. The preparation brought a sense of peace, a reassurance that the household would be nourished through the cold months. The cellars filled slowly with jars and baskets, each one a promise of warmth and comfort during winter's quiet darkness. Reducing food waste was essential in a world where every ingredient mattered. Families used every part of the harvest, drying peels for teas, fermenting stems for broths, storing seeds for future planting. Nothing was discarded without thought. Leftovers were transformed into new meals. Herbs were dried before they wilted. Fruits were preserved before they softened. Grains were stored carefully to prevent spoilage. The rhythm of the household was shaped by this careful attention, a quiet respect for the gifts of the land, a deep understanding that waste was not only impractical but unthinkable. Kitchens became places of creativity as well as preservation. Families learned to combine preserved foods with fresh ingredients to create meals that were nourishing and flavorful. Dried fruits added sweetness to winter dishes. Fermented vegetables brought brightness to simple meals. Stored grains provided strength during long seasons. The kitchen became a place where the past and present met, where the work of previous months supported the meals of today, where preservation shaped not only survival, but also taste and tradition. The act of preserving food also strengthened communities. Neighbors shared knowledge and resources, helping one another during harvest seasons, exchanging jars of preserved vegetables or baskets of dried fruit, offering advice on storage techniques and seasonal planning. The community became a network of support, each household contributing to the well-being of the whole, the shared work creating bonds that lasted through generations. The rhythm of preservation becoming a rhythm of connection. Markets, kitchens, and households formed a cycle of preparation and care, each one supporting the other, each one shaped by the need to protect food from spoilage. The ancient world moved with the seasons, families adjusting their routines to match the rhythms of the land. The work of preservation becoming a quiet meditation, a way of honoring the earth's gifts and ensuring that nothing was lost. And now, as we step away from the bustling markets and the warm glow of ancient kitchens, as the scent of herbs and stored grain lingers softly in the air, we move gently toward the final chapter of our journey, a chapter shaped by stillness and reflection, a chapter where we step into an ancient pantry at dusk, surrounded by the quiet presence of preserved foods, a place where generations found comfort in the work of their hands. We step now into the peaceful world of the ancient pantry, where the night deepens and sleep begins to settle like a soft blanket over the past and the present alike. A peaceful evening inside an ancient pantry, reflecting on how generations preserved food long before electricity, ending with a calm transition into sleep. The evening settles softly around us now, the light fading into a gentle dusk that wraps the ancient world in quiet calm. We step slowly into an old pantry, a place shaped by centuries of hands that worked with patience and care, a place where the air is cool and still, where the scent of earthwood, herbs, and thyme lingers like a soft whisper. This pantry is not tied to one land or one culture. It is a space woven from the memories of countless civilizations, a place where the wisdom of generations rests on wooden shelves and in clay jars, a place where the past feels close and comforting. The door closes behind us with a quiet sigh, and the world outside grows distant. The air inside the pantry is cool and steady, carrying the faint aroma of dried fruit, the earthy scent of stored grain, the soft sweetness of honey sealed in clay, the gentle tang of fermented vegetables resting in their jars. The room is dim, lit only by the warm glow of a single candle placed on a smooth stone shelf, its flame flickering slowly, casting soft shadows that sway like drifting memories across the walls. Wooden shelves line the room from floor to ceiling, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of hands, each shelf holding the quiet work of seasons long past. Baskets woven from reeds and grasses rest in gentle curves, filled with dried herbs that rustle softly in the stillness. Clay jars stand in rounded rows, their surfaces cool to the touch, their lids sealed with cloth and wax. Inside them grains sleep in calm darkness. Protected from heat and time, wooden barrels sit in the corners, their curved sides holding the deep flavors of fermented foods, the air around them carrying a faint warmth of transformation. The pantry feels alive in a quiet way, not with movement, but with memory. Every vessel, every basket, every jar holds a story, a moment of preparation, a gesture of care, a hope for the future. Families across centuries stepped into rooms like this one, their footsteps soft on the packed earth floor, their hands steady as they arranged their food for the months ahead. The pantry became a sanctuary, a place where the work of the year found rest, a place where the household's future was held gently in the cool stillness. Imagine standing here now, your breath slow and steady, the candlelight warming the air around you, the shelves stretching out like gentle reminders of the past, the quiet hum of preserved food surrounding you. Each item resting in peaceful silence, the room feels timeless, untouched by the rush of the outside world, a place where the rhythm of life moves slowly, guided by the seasons and the steady patience of human hands. In ancient Egypt, a pantry like this would have been filled with jars of grain-dried onions and preserved fish, the coolness of mud brick walls protecting the food from the desert heat, the air carrying the faint scent of earth and herbs, families stepping inside to gather what they needed for the day, their movements slow and deliberate, their voices soft in the dim light. The pantry offering comfort in a land where the sun was strong and the seasons demanding. In ancient Greece, a pantry might have held amphorae of oil baskets of dried figs and jars of pickled vegetables. The stone walls cool even in summer, the shelves arranged with care, the air filled with the gentle fragrance of herbs hung to dry. Families stepping inside during the quiet hours of morning or evening, choosing ingredients for simple meals, the pantry a place of calm reflection, a reminder of the work that sustained them through the year. In Rome, a pantry would have been part of a larger storeroom, filled with clay jars, wooden barrels, and woven baskets, the air cool and steady, the scent of dried fruit mingling with the earthy aroma of grain. Families stepping inside to gather food for the day's meals, their hands brushing against smooth pottery and warm wood. The pantry a place where the household stability was kept safe, a place where the work of preservation met the rhythm of daily life. In Mesopotamia, a pantry might have been built from sun-dried bricks, its walls thick and cool, the shelves lined with jars of dates, dried herbs, and fermented grains, the air carrying the scent of earth and sweetness. Families stepping inside to check their supplies, their movements slow and thoughtful. The pantry a place of quiet assurance in a land shaped by heat and fertile soil. In China, a pantry would have held ceramic jars filled with fermented vegetables, dried mushrooms, and stored grains. The air cool and calm, the shelves arranged with precision, the scent of tea leaves drifting softly through the room. Families stepping inside to gather ingredients for meals that balanced freshness and preservation. The pantry a place where tradition and daily life intertwined, where the wisdom of generations rested in the quiet darkness. In medieval Europe, a pantry might have been part of a cool cellar, its stone walls holding the chill of the earth, the shelves filled with apples stored in straw jars of honey, baskets of dried herbs, and barrels of fermented vegetables. The air crisp and slightly damp, families stepping inside with lanterns during winter evenings, their breath visible in the cool air. The pantry a place of comfort during long cold months, a reminder that the work of summer and autumn had prepared them well. As we stand in this imagined pantry, shaped by all these places and times, we feel the quiet presence of generations who worked with patience and care, their knowledge passed down through countless hands, their methods shaped by the land, the climate, and the seasons. The pantry becomes a symbol of their resilience, their creativity, their deep connection to the natural world. A place where food was not only stored but honored, protected and cherished. The candle flickers softly, its warm light dancing across the shelves, the shadows swaying like gentle breaths, the air cool and steady, the room filled with a peaceful stillness that settles around you like a soft blanket. The world outside grows distant, the sounds fading into a quiet hum. The pantry becomes a sanctuary of calm, a place where time slows and the mind grows quiet. You can imagine running your fingers along the smooth surface of a clay jar, feeling the coolness of the earth beneath your touch, the jar holding grains that once swayed in warm fields, harvested by hands that work with hope and care. You can imagine lifting a woven basket, the dried herbs inside releasing a faint fragrance that drifts through the air like a memory of summer. You can imagine resting your hand on a wooden barrel, feeling the gentle warmth of fermentation within, the slow transformation that protected food through long seasons. Every object in this pantry carries a quiet wisdom, a reminder that preservation was not only a necessity, but a way of honoring the gifts of the land, a way of respecting the cycles of nature, a way of ensuring that nothing was wasted. The pantry becomes a place of gratitude, a place where the work of the past supports the present, where the efforts of countless hands echo softly through the stillness. As the candle burns lower, the room grows even quieter, the shadows deepening the air, cooling slightly, the shelves fading gently into the dimness. The pantry feels like a cradle of time, holding the memories of ancient kitchens, ancient markets, ancient families who lived with patience and intention, their lives shaped by the rhythm of the seasons, their food preserved with care and respect. You feel your breath slowing, your shoulders softening, your thoughts drifting like smoke rising from a quiet hearth, the stillness of the pantry settling into your mind. the cool air wrapping around you like a gentle embrace, the candlelight flickering softly as if guiding you deeper into rest. The ancient world understood the value of patience, the importance of preparation, the quiet strength of working with nature rather than against it. And as you stand in this peaceful pantry, you feel that wisdom settling into you, a calm reminder that life moves in cycles, that nourishment comes from care and intention. That rest is as essential as work. The candle burns lower still, its flame small and steady, the room dim and soothing, the shelves fading into soft shapes, the air cool and comforting, the pantry becoming a place where the mind can rest, where the body can soften, where the night can settle gently around you. And now as the last glow of the candle flickers softly, as the shadows deepen into a quiet embrace, you feel yourself drifting, the ancient pantry holding you in its calm stillness, the preserved foods resting in silence around you, the wisdom of generations settling like a soft blanket over your thoughts. The night grows deeper, the air grows softer, the world grows quiet, and you drift slowly into sleep, carried by the gentle rhythm of the past, the steady breath of the earth, and the peaceful stillness of this ancient pantry, where time moves slowly and rest comes naturally, where the work of countless hands has created a sanctuary of calm, where you can let go and drift into the quiet comfort of sleep, wrapped in the warmth of history and the softness of night.